to give them a few seconds to, hi Cheryl, hi Michelle. We're going to wait for a second to see how many people wander in really quick. Hi Barbara.
Yeah, Barbara.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a chat box. We love hearing from you guys.
All right, so if you guys can hear us, those of you who are already signed in and ready, can you guys just go ahead and give us in the comment section and make sure that you can hear us okay? Because we're working on one computer and this is a new setup for us. We've never gotten to host in person and we're really excited about it. So I don't see anybody saying they can't hear us. So.
Yeah, it just started a second ago though. So
okay.
There's a weird delay. So
good.
We got 10 viewers on right now.
Give it time to settle out.
How are you guys doing excited. In 2017?
I know, can you believe it's 2017 already?
No, I can't. It simultaneously felt like 2016 would never end and that it ended in a day.
Yeah, it definitely did. So good, everyone can hear us. So I'm happy about that. Yeah, 2017 is here. And that means that for many of us who subscribe to the wisdom of Writer Carol, that we should move to a new bullet journal every time a new year comes up, even if you're in the middle of an old one. It was time to move to a new bullet journal. So that can be a really exciting time, and it can also be a really stressful time for a lot of people. So we're hoping that we can kind of share some of our techniques, and I want to call it wisdom, except we're still learning also. So yeah. We're always still learning and adapting with things. So yeah, we're just hoping that we can kind of take some of the stress off of that and get some of your questions and your suggestions. So, okay. Shelby, I would kind of want to start with you because I think you have a much more artistic style with your bullet journal. So you're more likely to have things in your bullet journal that you really want to save other than just scheduling.
Yep. And I do. There's definitely certain things that, I mean, besides just the memories aspect of it, because there definitely is. I'm someone who, I'm sure this isn't that rare, but I really love nostalgia and I love feeling nostalgic. And so I really like flipping through old bullet journals to see, because all of my styles, like my watercolor style is like this particular time of my life. And I can remember sort of the stuff I was going through and my mindset when I was going through that kind of style phase and some stuff before that as well. So I really like keeping my old bullet journals just because there's some really good stuff in there. And, you know, I don't want to throw away a good old chunk of memories, a literal chapter of my life.
Right.
So there's definitely some things that I want to save, and then there's other things that I want to bring over. But there's also the pressure of, there's some things that I'm like, I can't possibly make this look any better.
Right.
Like,
right.
There's no way.
Not one more brush stroke, right?
Yeah. And so there was a lot of pressure. I felt a lot of pressure with moving over certain things that were essential to come over along with, like my grocery list. I made that way back in like May. And I was terrified of trying to change the style or do anything. So I was really nervous. I saved that for last, actually, because I was so worried about screwing it up.
Yeah.
So moving it over was really stressful for me because I just didn't want to fumble it. So,
right.
But yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that I really want to keep, and I really want to save, whether that's save in that journal or save in theory and bring it over to my new journal.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm sure with you, with writing, you have a lot of stuff that you don't want to just put on the shelf because you're actively working with stuff.
I do have a few. And so for those of you who are just joining us, we're talking today. Shelby and I were lucky enough to be together for this webinar for the first time. We're very excited because we're normally separated by states, but
so many.
It just so happened that this time we were going to be in the same area at the time the webinar would occur. So we got to host it together and we're super excited about it.
Very serendipitous.
It was perfect. So I do have a lot of things that I like to keep when I move over to a new journal. And I think the challenge is that some of the things some of the things that I want to keep, like you said, they're beautiful, and I don't know if I'll be able to do it again that well. But for the most part, the things that I want to keep are useful, and they might even still be growing. And I think that's the biggest challenge when you have a list that's still growing and you want to hang on to it, and you want to continue to grow it, but you can't really move the whole list over, and that's where things kind of become stressful. So I've developed a few different techniques, and I still am playing with things. It's not a static system. I still change things all the time, but for the most part, I want to kind of walk everybody through my general, and I think it's probably similar to Shelby's system, but we sort of have like some key points when it's time to move over to a journal, there's a system and there's an order that you sort of do things in. So the first thing is I actually, and this is kind of a new development for me, but I actually started separating some of my writing lists.
Really?
And there's a post coming about it soon, but I actually started a separate writing journal that has no scheduling and no calendar events, no task lists in it. It's strictly a journal in which I study the craft of writing, and I keep track of different literary devices, different character personality types, things like that. And that has saved me from having to change over something if I'm studying dialogue or something. That saves me from having to move that to a new journal. However, my general technique for starting to move to a new journal is first to flip through the old one. I think that is step one, is you need to, when you reach the last page and that's the end, and you put the final period on your last page of your journal, it's time to flip back to the beginning and just take a stroll through it and see what pops out at you as something that either makes you very happy or was especially useful, and something that and I think you kind of just go with your gut feeling there, like, oh, I just can't bear to part with this. I have to, like, this list is so important to me that I have to copy it over by hand to my new journal. Because that takes significant effort.
Yeah.
So it must be an important list for that to happen.
And that's also something with, and X Darkness, we're going to get to your question here in a second. But that's definitely something to consider, because a lot of people are really stressed about what to bring over, because there is that you have to,
right.
I mean, unless you want to go to the trouble of figuring out how to print it and then print it out. But a lot of the fun is in the handwritten aspect. But the trouble with moving a bunch of stuff over is that you have to do it all by hand, which is very time consuming. So you have to really be selective about what is worth it to you to bring over. So that's definitely something that is something we're going to cover a little bit in more detail. But it's just something to keep in mind whenever you're moving to a new journal.
And I am going to show you guys something real fast. I'm going to grab up my bookshelf here. But I actually started a collection archive, which it's not necessarily lists that I'm still growing. If it's a collection that's still growing, I would probably handle it in a different way, and we'll get to all that. But I did start a little bit of an archive, and this is just a way for me to organize old collections, so that if I want to know where all of my, like, any collection I've ever made that has to do with, let's say, health, then I can flip to this tab. And all I did was photocopy them, you guys. It's nothing fancy. I just photocopied them, and it's things that I just found useful. And I thought, oh, this is good. I should hang on to this. So this was my clean eating spread, which was like a 2-page spread. And it's something that I might need to reference a lot. And from year to year, I don't necessarily want to remember, oh yeah, that's right, I made that spread at the beginning of 2016, so it'll be in my 2016 journal, and it'll, that way I don't have to think about it. From year to year, I can continue to grow this binder and just reference things quickly if I need to for a new journal. But it's not necessarily something I would carry around with me, and it's not for lists that are still growing. This is just a way to organize multiple years into one journal, or into one, handy reference.
To keep a binder.
Yeah, to keep. Oh, thank you.
I like the idea of Xeroxing like that, so that it's you don't have to worry about redoing it all again. And if you had a lot of charm in the way that you set up your spread, you can just copy it over or Xerox it in and print it out and put it somewhere, so it's still preserved. Yep. And lovely. And I don't cut up the old journal. I leave it alone. Oh, no. I save it. Like, don't start tearing pages out of your journal. I can't even think of that. That gives me sweats.
The whole thing will start falling apart. Even if you don't mind the fact that you're taking things out of order, if you start cutting things out of a threaded journal, for example, eventually you take out enough pages, the whole thing does just fall apart. It can't hold itself anymore. So don't start doing that. But let's see. So we talked about flipping through the old journal.
Yes, get a lay of the land.
Yep, getting a lay of the land and deciding what's important to you. So I don't know, how do you do that? Like, if you've got a collection that you want to keep, and how do you separate the collections that you want to keep from the collections that you don't? Do you have a way that you do that?
I mean, granted, this is not the hard and fast way. I've switched bullet journals once before, way back in in May 2016 was my first month in my berry. I call them berry and lemon. Oh, they have names. Yeah. But it was my first month in berry, and so I had this bullet journal for a long time before, this old ecosystem journal for like 2 years. And so moving over wasn't that big of a deal for me. Like it was ceremonial, like starting a new journal with a Letstrom, and it was all very nice. But there wasn't really a system. I just kind of did it and just kept going. But now with moving from berry to lemon, which this is lemon, by the way, it's my little lemon journal. I don't just make up fruit names for them. But moving over there, it felt a lot more like I had to really think about it and get a bunch of stuff. So I actually created a collection in berry near the end where I just was like, it was just a list of things that I wanted to move over into my new journal. And it wasn't really that fancy. It just kind of was like a scribbled out little list, but I just went through and just kind of flipped through, and I was like, what are the things that I use the most often? What are the things that I don't really use as much as I'd like, but I'd really like to start focusing on them more. And I just jotted them down there and did it from there. I know that I did at some point go through and do what you did, which is put little flags in there.
Yeah. And that's, I think, a really handy system. So when it comes to marking my collections, what I ended up doing was I just went through, this is my old journal. This is the purple one. And I just went through and I just tagged the pages as I was doing my flip through of things that I wanted to see moved over into the new journal. So I did this, and it's, I sort of made a mess with it. And then I have to admit, guys, then I saw that Kara from Boho Berry had a much smarter system, and I kind of felt like an idiot afterwards. But which this is just an easier way to do it, is you just end up going through your index, and then you put a little checkbox next to an item that you need to move. You just handle it like a bullet. So these, I thought I was going to move them, and then I lined through them because I decided, I'm not going to move those over. But that's probably a quicker way to do it at a glance if you don't mind marking up your index. Otherwise, if that bothers you, then just use Post-its the way I did. And either way, I think it works either way. Using a scrap of paper works. Just use whatever works for you. It doesn't have to be this big ceremonial process if that's not what you need at the time. Just try to get organized on paper if you need to, get organized with Post-its, and just decide what needs to move with you over to the new journal.
And it's not even something you need to do when you reach the end of the journal. If you I don't know if you want to right now in your middle of a journal, you could just create a collection and just jot down the things that you like, and then later you can go and just kind of add things retroactively. Like, I want to make sure to move this, so that you don't have to try to like think of them all right now. What are all the things that I need to bring with me? And there's no pressure. You can already have the list. But really quick before we move on, I just want to, Barb, you were saying you're worried about moving your passion planner and your bullet journal into one disc-bound journal, but you're scared of screwing it up. You're fine. I promise you, it'll be fine. It's really scary. Something about that kicking into a new journal, there's just so much pressure.
Changing the system.
And it is very scary, but it's just like once you get past like the first 2 or 3 pages, the pressure is lifted. It's like, or at least it was for me. I don't know if it is for everybody, but for me, the first couple of pages are always like, oh, nail biting. But because I'm thinking about the whole system and how I need to make sure to get the whole system just right on the first try. But that's not just the way it works. You can start, and especially with disc-bound, you can move stuff around and you'll be fine.
And I think that's a really interesting point. So Barb was saying that she actually, this is a comment that we got from Barb, and she's saying that she has transitioned to a passion planner, and that she also uses a bullet journal to kind of keep track of the collections. And there are a lot of people who do that, who keep a collection notebook, and then they keep a separate planner, like a pre-printed planner or something. And that works for a lot of people. So I think you just need to weigh whether or not you want a one notebook system, or you're okay with having 2 notebooks. Any kind of disc-bound system, or a Traveler, for example, anything that has a modular design, a Filofax, and just a ringed notebook, you can remove things and change things around. And there are some challenges with that, because you're not able to keep an accurate index. But I think people who use those systems find another way to stay organized. They use dividers, or they because they're in smaller sections, they just start to learn where things are. Maybe, I'm not sure if that's kind of how that works. But I think that when it comes to modular systems, those people have things figured out. I think the migration is a bigger stress for those of us who have decided to be a one notebook system.
Same.
Like for us, we're using a bound notebook. We can't move things around. We can't transfer things over. And we really, really need that one notebook. Like I said, I keep a writing notebook and I keep a reading journal, but those are things that I don't need with me when I leave the house. I can just stick them on my bookshelf and come back to them. But when it comes to having my bullet journal with me, I have to have one bullet journal, and it's just one more thing to carry if I have an extra thing. So that's for me personally, but you need to examine your own situation and decide if, you know, something else would work better for you. And maybe that would take the stress off of this whole, you know, moving, the big move, you know, which can be so daunting sometimes for people, especially for those of us who find ourselves in a situation of doing it more than once a year.
Yeah, I do it. The last bullet journal, Barry, lasted about 6 months, and I am expecting the next one to last about 6 months. Really quick, Julie, you just got the Frixon pens and you like them. I'm really glad to hear. I still need to get some.
Awesome.
You have. I have to steal some.
You know what? I'll give you one. I'll give you one before you leave. So,
I just want to write with one and stick it in the freezer. That's all I want. But
it is really cool the way that, like, I played with mine just for hours trying to figure out, like, how they can go hot, cold, hot, cold. It was really neat. So I think they're very useful. What I've started doing with the friction pens, this is totally off topic, but we're going to take just a little side trip here into friction pens because we got this lovely comment. So what I ended up starting to do with my friction erasable gel pens, for those of you who aren't familiar with the friction pens, they are gel pens that erase. So they're not like the old, remember those all old ballpoint goopy? No, they're not like that. They're really nice. But I started using those just on my monthly spread for my schedule. So that if something changes, then I can move it. But you know, I know there have been some complaints from people that the black maybe isn't as black as it should be, and it isn't very dark. I will tell you, the black ink is not very dark, but it is really nice that on a schedule I can make an appointment and then move things around. So yeah, they're really nice. But okay, side trip over. Yeah.
And then really quick again, X Darkness, you said you were asking about where to find dot grid paper for a binder, which is actually a great question because I don't know that. I imagine you can probably find some on Amazon. Amazon has everything. But you might, if you are so inclined, I think you can make, if you're willing to sit down and work with it, I think you can make a dot grid type thing on Word or some sort of thing. Or if you have any kind of editing software, you can make it pretty easily because it's a very simple pattern. But that might be something worth playing with. I know that I remember seeing a tutorial a while back about how to make your own dot grid paper for something, and I haven't really tried it. So
if you open that drawer right there, the middle one,
this one?
Yeah. See, I've got something to show you guys. Underneath those, let me grab this. I actually have some pre-printed dot grid paper that came punched that I ordered on Amazon, and I'll show you guys what it looks like. Yeah, grab one of those out there.
Fantastic.
So this is dotted paper that I ordered from Milico. And I ordered it on Amazon. It wasn't very expensive. It's actually a nice quality paper. I'll open it up so Shelby can have a peek at it too. So if you want to use something like that, this one's pre-punched for Filofax. I think Milico actually makes some that are, see, like they're the, yeah, so it's pre-punched for Filofax, but I think they make some that are for like 3-ring binders, and they might make some for a disc-bound system. I'm not sure, but here, if you want to feel that.
So really thick
it's thick and it's pretty smooth. So that's an option. That's Milico, and that's on Amazon. But
and that looks just like a Lexstrom. If you have any,
yeah,
I don't know about.
It's the same measurement.
But yeah, it's
the same measurement. Yeah, I think it's 5mm squares, which is the same as. I'm sorry, I'm putting that right over your face. It's the same as the like term paper. So anyway, that's an option. This is an A5 size. But anyway, sorry, that was another supply side trip.
And someone's saying that you can get it, the Bullet Journal Junkies Facebook group has dot grid paper on their files. I didn't know that.
They do. They do. They have it uploaded to the file, so you can print your own.
There you go. That's a great option. So go to Bullet Journal Junkies on Facebook and request to join if you're not already.
Yep, absolutely. So, okay, so that's an option for people. We were talking about some other options for moving your things is that you know, you can use some kind of a modular system in order to preserve some of those collections so you don't have to necessarily migrate them over. However, let's pretend we're back in a static journal world and we have to move them over somehow. So for my new journal, what I started with was after I had marked all of the collections that I needed to move, there were surprisingly few. I don't know, I was surprised.
I didn't really have that many either. Honestly.
At the end of the year, I had a lot of collections that were useful at the time, and they served their purpose, and I was grateful for them, and I let them go. You know, and I think I just yeah, they were useful at the time, and the needs of my life changed. So I really only had, I think, maybe 5 collections.
That's about the same for me, actually.
That were worth copying over.
Yeah, I had a couple things like meal planning, grocery lists, future planning, of course. And then I redid one. I didn't copy it over directly, but I did my goals and rewards, which I just did a post on, that I had done way back in the beginning, like back in May. I front loaded a lot of stuff at the very beginning of that last journal, but I had that, and I redid it and re-upped my goals and tweaked it around a little bit. So that was something that I count that as I moved over. But a lot of the stuff I might actually end up redoing again eventually. Like I had a couple of Halloween spreads that there was no reason for me to copy them over because I don't need them right now, but I get obsessed with Halloween like in August. In July, so I'm probably going to start obsessing about it again in about 6 months, and then I will probably start doing a bunch of Halloween related stuff. But there's no need for me to copy that stuff over because it served me then, or at least it served me in letting me kind of get the Halloweeniness out of my body onto paper. So I didn't really do any Halloween stuff. It's not really relevant, but anyway, there's just a couple things like that. There's a lot of things like that that were really useful whenever I wrote them down, but I don't need to copy them over.
Right. Not necessarily a permanent collection.
Yeah.
Per se.
It was great, and I can reference it if I really need to. Like if it's something.
Yeah, because it's still in the old journal.
Yeah, like I have lots of weekly notes. Like my husband and I will sit down and have weekly meetings, or we try to catch up on what we're trying to do, what we've been doing, and so that we make sure that we're on the same page, literally. And I have no reason to copy those over, but I really like having them so I can flip back and find the date and be like, okay, these are the things we talked about and this is what's going on. Yeah. So it's just, I have like lots of little collections like that all throughout.
I think there were the collections that I ended up really moving over. So besides, when we say collections, just for anybody who's new to bullet journaling, when we say the collections we're moving over, we're assuming that at the beginning of the year we are moving over future planning. What am I thinking? Future planning, probably holidays and birthdays. Your monthly pages, those are not necessarily part of your collections. Those are part of your permanent planning pages. So those you would definitely need to move those over. Yeah. Even if you moved to a new journal, say mid-year, you would want to move those over. But when we say collections, we're talking about a special spread that you made to track like your healthy eating and things like that. So I think the ones that I ended up moving over were my reading list. But even then, I'm not sure if I would consider that moving it over because I created a 2016 reading list and now I have a 2017 reading list. So I needed to update it, and there were a lot of the same books on it, things that I hadn't gotten to. I wasn't able to read them yet. So I have my new list for that. And then I copied over one of my writing lists, which was I like to keep lists of words and like new words that maybe I heard out that either I had never heard before, or a word that I've heard and I went, oh yeah, that's a good word. That needs to be part of my vocabulary, so I might put it in a list of words to practice it and try to make it a permanent part of my vocabulary. So even if it's a word that you know what it means, but you just don't use it. Right.
Actually, I never even thought of that. That's a great idea because whenever you're a writer, you're not going to write everyone from your vocabulary.
Exactly.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So I have to practice new words and making them a part of my vocabulary so I can pull them when I need them, when I'm writing. So that's another list that I actually kept. And that's one that I threaded to my previous journal because I obviously wasn't going to copy over hundreds of words.
No.
So I actually threaded that one to my old journal. In a continuation of that collection in the old journal. So for anybody who's wondering how to keep a collection growing when you move from journal to journal, you end up numbering your journals. So let's see, this one's not numbered, it just says Bujo. But if I were doing this correctly, if I weren't completely unprepared to show you guys how to do this, right here I would end up writing Bujo number 1. And then for my collection, I would, I don't know if I've actually marked this one yet, but so like I have some words in here. It's a new list, so it's pretty short, but I left 2 pages for it. So I have a couple of, this will end up being my new words to practice. So what I would end up doing was I say I threaded this and then I didn't even do the work. I didn't even do this. You guys keep up with your index and your actual stuff. Don't be like this girl. So here I would actually write the page number and the journal number that I threaded it to, if that makes sense. So that way I could keep it growing and then I would know exactly where to look for the beginning of that collection. So that's one way to do that.
I just checked. My index is box where lemon hasn't been touched. It's completely naked.
See, I know. We're terrible.
I'm bad at the index.
You know what though? I'll show you my index though for my new one, so you guys know that I'm not a total screw up, that you can rely on me. This is my index for my current bullet journal. So I do keep up with my index pretty well, but I have to admit that when it comes to threading, sometimes I don't thread as well as I should. Partly because I think I just know, oh, that list is in that other journal, but I really should do a better job of it, because I know it right now because it's the beginning of the year, but later in the year I won't remember where the beginning of that list is. You know what I mean?
Yep,
so
I know what you mean.
Right after we hang up, I'm gonna have to fix that, because that's a problem. But yeah, so that's another yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
And I was just looking through, and Future Log is one that I did, and you're right, it's not really a collection, it's just something that technically just had to get added one way or another. Yeah. And the only other things, I don't know if you count them as moving over or just simply updated. I did my level 10 life again, because I try to do that around every 6 months or so, which works out really well at the beginning of a new journal. So I did a new level 10 life, which it doesn't really count as moving anything over because the information was all brand new. And then one thing that I actually for sure moved over, no question, was my blog post ideas page. It's just like a inspiration page that I get an idea, I jot it down, and I just move that over. But other than that, and then there's the grocery list and the meal planning. And even the meal planning, that was really fun, because it was all Post-it, so
you just moved them over.
I just did the header, and that was works. It. So that was really simple.
That's great.
So it was really not that bad. And granted, some people might want more things to move with them, but I think if you really look at it and you really ask yourself, is this still useful to me? Is it worth the effort?
Yeah.
I think you'll find that there's not as many things as you think there are, because I thought that there were definitely going to be a lot of things. And by the time I sat down and actually did it, it was kind of like, oh, that wasn't so bad. It's like expecting a shot to be really painful, and then you get it and it's like, no, not bad at all.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think, and one of the, you brought this up, and it just makes me think, one of the things that I think is really nice, and part of the reason I hold myself to a bound journal, is that it actually does force me to think about whether or not a collection is useful in my life, or if it's just clutter. I mean, it can just be clutter in your journal. So if I had a modular system, I would probably let it get like this thick, because I would never take anything out. I would never want to move anything away.
You never know when you might need it.
Oh yeah, I'm always going to need it. But I feel like with this way, because I'm forcing myself to take the effort to actually copy it over, I have to do a lot more self-assessment on and whether or not it's useful for me. So real fast, AC Taylor had asked, do you thread things that repeat every month, like gratitude logs or habit trackers? I don't. You certainly could, because it could be, like your gratitude number 1, number 2, number 3, and so forth, for different months. And then you would know exactly what page, if you wanted to see what you were grateful for each month, you could thread all of your gratitude journals or all of your gratitude logs together. You certainly could. I don't. My monthly setup is my monthly spread, my 6-word story challenge, my brainstorming page. I call it brainstorming page, but a lot of people call it brain dump.
It's probably a more dignified way to call it, honestly.
Yeah, well, I think because I think brain dump has like the connotation that you're getting all this stuff out of your brain.
Never gonna see it again.
And maybe you need that. Maybe that needs to be your page where you dump everything out. For me, I try to use it as a page where I am developing ideas. So I want it to be sort of an inception page rather than a page where I lose things. But it's however you're using yours, and you want to call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter what you call it, really. I mean, you can call it, you can code word it if you want. It doesn't really matter. And then the other thing, I've started keeping a memory page each month, and that's about it for like my static monthly pages. I don't thread mine, but you certainly could. And then as far as, I think that's it.
Yep. And then Stephanie asked, I understand what you're saying. You said that you spent 4 hours making this gigantic master list of meals and spent a lot of time on it, and it's a big old 2-page spread. You've never looked at it again. I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
Spending a lot of time on something and just never touching it again.
I can relate to that.
And that's why going through and actually figuring out what I was going to move with, I realized that there were a lot of things that I did that exact same thing. I spent a lot of time on,
You thought it was going to change your life. You thought it was going to be amazing.
And it's good to still try those things. Like, sometimes they just don't stick. Actually, my first brain dump, whenever I first did it, it was great because I was just like, get this all out of my head. And I never, it was like putting it in the dumpster. Never looked at it again.
Right.
I thought I was going to reference it constantly and be like, whenever I have a spare minute. But it's just one of those things I never, ever touched again. And yeah, I think everyone has that sort of a thing going on.
So Elisa asked when we can expect the writing bullet journal post. I have been working on this post for like a month, and I think because it's still a growing journal, I keep thinking, oh, I'll just wait till I get this into the journal and then I'll post it for you guys. I'll tell you what, I will give myself a deadline and I will have that post up for you guys within 2 weeks. Okay, within 2 weeks that writing journal will be posted. But just because you guys are here, I'll give you a sneak peek of it. At the end, before we give our big giveaway announcement, we're starting a giveaway today. I can tell that, right? Okay, too late. So
I think we can break.
So at the very end, before we kick off the giveaway, I'll show you guys the writing journal.
We have them in person. It's not just like a picture. We can touch them.
We can show you.
I mean, you can't touch them, but I can, and that's what's important.
That's what's important. So okay, so let's get back to the subject at hand. So so we talked about getting your bullet journal organized. I said I created a blueprint in my new journal to give myself a system, and this was new in this journal. And I think this is something that everybody should do before they start a new journal. Is after you flip through the old one, you decide what's useful, and then you need to make a blueprint for how you're going.
I'm sorry, did you that page right there? Did you draw that?
No, this is a printable from my very, very nice friend Dawn Nicole, and she makes these coloring pages. She's a hand lettering blogger, and
you got it in there really seamlessly.
Yeah, and anyway, I screwed up that page, and so I printed off one of her things.
While she's flipping through that, I just want to say how uniquely interesting it is to see something I've been seeing online for months in person. Like seeing her bullet journal is just. It's really cool.
It's real, guys. This is my real journal. So, and I get to look at Shelby's after this too. So these are my regular spreads. These are what I like to think of as my core or my foundation spreads. And I think this is really useful to do at the beginning of any journal because it gives you a sense of what your journaling system is. So you might add collections and things like that. Whoops, I'm losing things. You might add collections and things like that. But if you know what your core pages are, then you'll always have something to fall back on in terms of your planning. So you know that every single month you're going to need to check this list and migrate from future to monthly, from monthly to daily, however you want to do it. But I think this really gives you some structure to your system because it's really easy with a bullet journal because it's such a blank slate. I think it's really easy to get carried away in, doing something fun on every page. And by the end of it, just like Stephanie was saying earlier, is you put a lot of effort into something that maybe wasn't very useful.
Yeah.
But if you really get in touch with what is useful for your planning process, then you're going to be able to create meaningful collections that really speak to your goals in your life. So I think that creating a blueprint is really, really useful.
And really quick, X Darkness said that not really sure, wanting to move from a composition notebook to a proper bullet journal, but not sure whether to move to a binder or like a Letstrom type journal. And that's a really tough decision. And I can't really say, I mean, I'm a Letstrom girl myself. I like having it pre-bound. I like having the finality of it. That's something that I've been working on, honestly, and I might not be that it's that much different from a binder, but for me, one of my things, especially 2017, is I'm trying to do this whole done not perfect idea.
Yeah.
And having it be in a bound journal has helped that mentality a ton because I can't just get rid of it.
Right.
And so I have to kind of live with it if I make a mistake, but that's good because that's something I was really struggling with. The idea of if I screw up, then it's ruined forever. And sort of having it sort of shoved in my face with a pre-bound notebook made me get a lot more cool with the idea, a lot more chill with the idea of just making mistakes and move on. So, I mean, it's really up to you of what you want. Some people, I haven't tried a binder. I don't know if I did have it, I don't know if I'd ever move anything around. I think I'm so used to being like, pre-bound system.
I think my advice would be if you're using a composition book, you're accustomed to writing on something that has a flat laying binding because composition books. If it's like the regular, like science, like the marble front composition book, if it's that style that I'm thinking of, then those are typically either sewn or stapled, and they do lay relatively flat. So if you're used to writing in a notebook, I think you should try writing in a ringed binder before you move to a binder. I think you should try writing in one for a week and just see if it's for you. Because I love the idea of a Filofax or a ringed binder, and part of the reason I don't go to one is I tried it for a week and I couldn't write on my pages. I really, really didn't like it. And like I said, that lasted for all of a week. And every single day I was a little angry. I was kind of an angry person that week because I just couldn't make it work the way I wanted it to.
Like, be what you want.
So that would be my advice, is to try the binder to see if it's for you before you go that route. The other thing you can do is, if you start with a bound notebook and you decide it's really not for you. Remember earlier when I said never cut up a notebook? Well, if you decide it's really not for you, you can slice the pages out, punch them, and put them in a binder and move on.
And then you can use the rest of the journal for something else. That only works for like the first 20 pages though. After that, you're kind of committed.
I mean, you basically at that point, you need to be willing to destroy the journal. If you're going to take all the pages out, you need to be okay with the idea that that journal is probably going to be wrecked. But then you could move it to a binder if you decided that was an option you needed. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Joanne, I think it was, you're asking if it was mindstorming instead of brain dump. I think you said just brainstorming, right?
I use brainstorming, but
mindstorming
is even better.
I like
that.
Like a super villain.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome.
I like that. That's gonna be my mutant power. I like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so the next thing that I think we should talk about is, what do you move and when?
What are the essentials? I know we've kind of touched on it all over the place, but it's something that's just deeply personal for each person. For something that's just regular collections for regular everyday life, like the grocery list, I feel like that's just a really good example because everyone goes grocery shopping. And some people might have like drawn it out in their bullet journal and they just decide that they prefer doing it on their phone or something. I know a lot of people use an app for their grocery shopping. I don't like looking like a dumb millennial walking around with my face in my phone. I feel self-conscious about it. So I like having a journal out.
Yeah.
And so that helps me a lot. But if someone drew it out and they really wanted to keep using it because it was pretty or something, but it's not something that really helps them actually remember to get stuff from the grocery store, maybe it's not worth bringing. But there's regular everyday life stuff, and then there's some stuff that's just huge, big planning, like wedding planning is a gigantic one.
That's a big undertaking.
Or if you're starting a business, or if you're just doing a gigantic project at work or home renovation, something that takes up months and
starting a blog,
something huge like that. Those are the kind of projects that you want to either like if you're still going to be working on that project in your new bullet journal, it might be worth taking along, or even just getting like a small little assistant notebook just for that one project. I know some people do that. I don't really. I have one little notebook that I use for my financial stuff, just so I don't have all the numbers in the journal that I take pictures of every day. But I just have a bunch of stuff in there. But for like, if you are planning a wedding, and I'm saying that one because that's the last big thing that I had to do, besides the ongoing blogging business thing. But that gigantic thing, there were so many collections that I created left and right about just everything, buying the dress and finding catering and the music, all of these things. And if you happen to be moving over to a new bullet journal while you're still in the middle of planning this and you need those, especially if you're like coming up on the deadline for a particular project, maybe it's worth it to write those over. Or Xerox them so you don't have to worry about all of the having to redraw everything. But just if it's still relevant and you still need it, then don't feel bad about taking the time to draw and write it all over again because you still need it. If it's something that you just don't really use anymore, don't feel pressured to take it with you.
Yeah.
And even if you decide like to just go kind of bare bones when you're first starting, you can still add it later. It's not the end of the world if you don't have to front load it all at the beginning. If you decide 50 pages in your bullet journal, that some collection that you were considering bringing over but didn't, and you decided that you really do need that, you can draw it in. It's not that big of a deal. So it's really no pressure.
I think that's great. So I, with that same thing, so what do you move in? And the first thing I move are my scheduling pages. That's like, without a doubt, I have to have my scheduling pages. And this is really silly, but this is just me, book nerd that I am. I put my reading list, and it was in my last journal as well. My my reading list for the year is like one of the first things that's in my journal. It's just really important to me, you know, the books I'm going to read that year. It's really important. It's really personal. So last year it was right after my future planning, and this year it was a little bit later, only because I had to move over in December, which sort of,
I did the exact same thing.
You know, it kind of messed up.
It
was frustrating. It sort of messed up my planning mojo. I wasn't really happy about it, but
I'm really hoping to make this bullet journal last 7 months so I can start again in June and be back on a regularly scheduled programming. It's so annoying. It's 1 month away from 2017 and I have to start a new one.
I tried to be all zen about it and be like, hey man, it's no big deal. It was a huge deal to me to have to move in December.
It's one of those things that only stationary people and planning people really understand how annoying that is.
But you know what? I actually made my peace with it, and I made a fresh start, and I was really happy that I did that.
2017,
it did. Yeah, it did. So my book, my reading collection is one of the first ones that here, I'll hold that up for you guys just a little bit in case you're curious about what I want to read this year. But this was one of the first ones that I moved over along with my planning pages. The other ones, really, for the most part, I kind of just let them come when they come, and I keep a list, like you were saying earlier, like just a list of collections to put in my bullet journal. So it's a collection of collections, if you will, but it gives me a place to reference. I can just pop back to it and go, okay, what else was a goal of mine to have in this journal? Well, I really wanted a spread I really want to move over my task batching spread. That is a spread that's been very useful for me, and I really want to move over how I group tasks together in a lump of time so that I can get more done. So that's one that I'm still in the process of. I need to sit down and move that one over. But it's not a huge hurry, so I'm trying to just take my time with it. Yeah. Like I can get to it when I get to it. And one of the things you can do, if you want your journal in a specific order, and this I think really helps when you're in a hurry, you're setting up a new journal, the first of the year is already such a busy time. And if you're just in a hurry that you don't have time to copy over all of those collections right then, but you know that you want them in a specific spot in your journal, you can just save the page with a Post-it. Just put the Post-it on there.
That's a really good idea.
And then you can plan out the order of your journal without having to sit down and do it all in one sitting. But you've got the page saved, and then you can also flip through your Post-its and envision how those pages are going to be usable. You know, like, okay, this will be my future planning, and then behind that I would have my goals, and then behind that I would have, so that would give you a sense of the rhythm of your journal before you actually commit ink to the page. And it keeps you from, it just keeps you from having to move things around or be frustrated the whole time you're in this journal, be frustrated at the order that things are in.
Yep. And something that Florentina asked about, well, she mentioned something about putting collections in the back of the journal.
Oh, yeah.
Which is something that I know some people just only, whenever they come up with their collection, they only put them in the back of the journal. Right. They kind of like have their planning working from the front to the middle, and their collections working from the back to the middle.
You work from both ends and then meet in the middle when you run out of pages.
And
a lot of people use that system, and I actually think it's a pretty good system.
I think it's, sounds, I don't use it myself, but I definitely see the merits of that, because then you can just have everything, where you need it.
Yep.
It's all in one general chunk of pages.
Absolutely. So I'm the same. I work chronologically, and I let them scatter throughout, because I like seeing, when I flip back through, I like seeing what was happening at that time in my life that spurred that collection.
Like I said, I like the memories of it. Yeah. So seeing the collections kind of pop up throughout my planning, that makes sense to me, because I like being able to see it. However,
it's great though. That's a great way to handle it.
I will say that I put a lot of my stuff at the beginning, like I do with everything. But for the two things that I used the most often in my old bullet journal on a regular everyday basis is my grocery list and my meal planning. I know I've said that like a dozen times, but before I had come up with them months apart, and so they were completely separate. Now I'm very pleased to say that they're both at the back of my journal, and I have my grocery list and then my meal planning right next to each other. So I think
that's great.
I can flip through my recipes and be like, I want this, and I can just like flip right to the next page and mark what I need to get to the store. I love having these in the back. It's super convenient.
And that's what's so great too about moving to a new journal. Whenever you get to move, you get to evaluate what you did last year and what you can do better, and how you can make the system work for you better.
Yeah, that's one thing that is really fun. That's one of the things that adds a little bit of pressure with moving to a new journal, is because you want to be like, how can I make this better and more efficient? But sometimes you don't need to. Sometimes it's one of those things that will just come naturally.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll just happen when it happens. And then, but I definitely need to use the Post-it note idea sometimes.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
It helps me because sometimes, especially I have small children, so sometimes I'll be right in the middle of planning something, and then it's, I'm like, I'm right on the cusp of getting the order right, and I'm like, okay, so then I'm going to do these pages, and then it's, Mom, I have to go to the bathroom, so
Yep.
I can't, like, I have to drop everything, and then I have to come back, and I can't remember how I had it worked out. So this way I can just mark the page and go, oh, I'll come back to that,
which is
next time I sit down.
Great, because I mean, I don't know about you, but the reason I use the bullet journal so often is because I can't remember. I can't hold anything in my head for more than 5 seconds, or it's gone. Like, it frustrates my husband to no end, and I'm like, this is what I do for a living, and this is why. It's because I can't remember anything.
Right. Your memory gets a lot better after you have kids. No,
I think that's a lie.
it is. That's
Okay.
a huge lie. Doesn't at all. Doesn't at all. So, and then, you can also adjust formats too, which is really nice. Like you can, one of the things I did this year was that last year I really experimented a lot with headers. And then I found this header that I loved, and it worked really well for me. And I decided, this is my monthly header. Every month, this is my monthly header. And the same thing with my weekly header. So I settled on that.
The one where it's the word going through.
It's the type.
That's really cool.
It's the typeface. So
I
use
so
this
cool.
one for my weekly, and it always says this week. And then for the month, I use should be 2 pages back. And then for the month, I just use the actual month, and then I just write out the year.
The way that you make serif fonts by hand is just crazy to me.
I spend a lot of time staring at a computer. So I'm really good at those.
It makes
hand lettering is not my thing, though. It's
typeface,
which is really interesting. I'm not good at like the brush lettering that everybody does. That's so beautiful. That's something I really struggle with.
I can't do that. I can do the flowy stuff, but I can't do the stuff that's like the sort of rigid, hard edges. Yeah, that's really hard for me. So. But anyway, I just thought that was really cool. You have a pretty planner. I like looking at it.
I like yours. It's all colorful and beautiful.
I try.
So this is, I think, why we do well together. We're very good at different things.
Yeah.
So we have different strengths, and it's great that we can kind of share ideas together. So let's see. We talked about keeping a list of someday collections, things that we want to get to eventually, things that would be useful. We just haven't gotten around to making them. Taking your time.
There's no rush.
There's no rush really to settle into a new journal.
It took me a month to get into mine. I actually had kind of 2 of them going at the same time, because I had Berry next to me on my desk constantly, and I had Lemon, and I was kind of just I took a whole month. I took all of December to really get out of Berry and into Lemon, because it's not like a house. You don't need to move out of it and then be done in a day. Like, you can move out of it slowly over time if if that doesn't bother you. To me, it was great, because it meant that there was no pressure. I didn't have to sit down and commit a lot of time and hours into just getting this right. I could take my time, and whenever I felt good about it, I could sit down and really put effort into it. And then there are times that I was just too busy, and I didn't really feel like I had the time to do it right.
So April, you asked if I have a printable for those headers. I don't, but I am working on one. I think those of you who are on my newsletter, you know that I just started a resource library. So that's sort of become a bigger priority for me, is making those printables for you guys. So I am working on a printable for the headers so that you can print those off for your weekly spreads and your monthlies, okay? The other thing, let's see, was there anything else that we had to talk about besides questions? Are there any questions that we have not answered?
Stephanie asked, she says that she does sporadic collections and challenges, and she asked if there's any advice for keeping them in more order and in one journal. Just keeping, I don't know if you heard this earlier, but we were talking about keeping collections at the back of your journal, so that if you have any new ideas for collections, you just start from the back page and kind of work your way forward. And then you just do your regular planning from the beginning and work your way, and then just at some point run out. And don't worry about it. Don't apologize. But, or if you wanted to, you can also keep, you asked to keep it in one journal. So just keep a really updated index, really.
Yeah. And the other thing is, if let's say you have a notebook with you, just keep a notebook with you. Okay. And a reason to make a collection comes up, and it's sporadic, like you were saying. You sort of just make them when the mood strikes you, it sounds like. So you make the collection, and then one option is if you don't, I'm going to use the old journal because it's a lot easier to see because I have more dots on it. But if you want to separate all of those into categories, so they wouldn't necessarily be all in the same order, but you could separate them into categories. One of the things that you can do is put edge labels on your pages. And I show this to people a lot. And sometimes I feel like I'm like preaching it a little bit. I'm like, no, you need to use edge labels. But that's because for me, they were really
lifesaver.
Like, yeah, I mean, they just changed the whole functionality of my journal. I no longer felt like I needed tabs and needed things in a certain order. But
things sticking out from your journal is always
things
so
sticking
annoying.
out from your journal. So if you can see on my page edges, I have these little colored dots, and the yellows all go in the same row, and the blues and the purples and the pinks, they all go in the same row. And that's because I have this handy dandy guide at the back, and I line up my dots with that. And then I have different categories for how I'm organizing those. So if you were making collections for like challenges, you use that, Stephanie, you use that you make them for challenges, then you could actually sort different colors for different challenges that you might jump into.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could have, you know, if you experiment with challenges and you do a different one every month, then you could just have a dot for challenges. You could, but if you have one challenge that you do all year round, say the PF 6-word challenge,
something like that.
Then if you did that one every month, then you could actually have a dot just for that challenge. And then you would have all 12 of your months for that challenge in there. If that makes sense. I don't know if that helps you at all.
Or in the same vein, like we were talking about with big projects earlier, big ongoing life events like renovations or planning a wedding. You can have just like one dot color. You can have one dot color for that particular project, so you can keep track of where that is in your journal,
or
so you can
even
follow it.
I'll show you how I this is my writing journal. This is a Blackwing dotted journal that I got from JB Welly, and this is a great little journal. And there are some key differences with the like term, which is why I don't use it for my everyday bullet journal, but it was really, really great for my writing journal. So so I actually use the same page edge system in here, but I use it differently than I do in my everyday bullet journal, where I need to cover different life events. Like, you know, because in my regular bullet journal, I need what do I need? I need the like health and, you know,
like
blogging. I need blogging and finance and all those normal life categories that people have. But in my writing journal, I need to be a little more specific. So I ended up changing some of my stickers here.
Nice.
But so I have my colors, and then I have things like dialogue and setting and editing and business language. This is the business of being a writer. I would love to tell you guys that being a writer is great, because all you have to do is write, and you're an artist. You know, and I wear a beret and drink coffee. It's not glamorous. There's a business to it, and it's a really hard business to understand and be able to work in, which is why I write for the joy of it and hope that someday something comes of it. But for right now, I write for the joy of it, and I still study the craft a lot. So this is my writing journal. And so I have, you know, like my little writing journal page, and I've got some things that I'm working on here. And then what I ended up starting, so I created my own index in this, and you'll notice like the Blackwing actually has an index, but I didn't like the way it was laid out. So I just created my own. And you always can do that. If a journal doesn't have something you like, you can modify it. So I created my collection of collections that I want to include. I created a list of the 7 key elements of fiction. I created, these are some character archetypes that I took notes on, and how those particular characters might react in given situations. And while I'm showing you this, I think Shelby's going to probably be answering some of your comments and questions. So if you have anything you want to say, now's a good time, and we'll make sure that we get to the last of your questions.
Yeah. Where's a good place on your blog for someone to find those dots?
If you go on my blog to the homepage, just go to pageflutter.com, and then on the sidebar there's a purple graphic in the sidebar that says "New to Bullet Journaling." Click here.
That'll do it. I'll link to it in the comments.
And in that post, I have a link to the exact dots that I use on Amazon. But you can also get some things like this on Etsy and some places like that. I like these because they're small and they're colorful. So then, you know, I have some other pages in here. You know, like this particular one is obviously about character, so it gets a yellow dot. And this is about Jung's 12 archetypes, which his work is it branched into psychology, and fiction writers use it a lot for understanding character and how people might behave. So I just have like some different, you know, like ego-based characters, soul-based characters, you know, things like that. And then I have some story development methods, the snowflake method. So that's basically what my writing journal has become. This is just a study journal for me, and it's something that, you know, I can kind of sit down and explore an art that I love and take notes on it and try to improve my understanding of it. And I find that after I create a page for something in here, here's one on plot. After I create a page in here, I have a better understanding of it the next time I sit down to write a work in progress of some kind. So, and I'm really private about my writing. So I probably should share, some of my writing with you guys. But I'm kind of one of those, I'm like a perfectionist about it. I don't want you to read it until it's published, sort of thing. So I have some short stories that are floating around out there between different literary journals. And if and when things are published, I have a section in my blog that I can link them to for you guys.
Yep.
Yeah, anyway.
Michelle asks, what do you do with your actual writing, fiction, new words, etc.?
Most of my writing has been nonfiction. I have a couple of articles here and there. I've got one that's published at Next Gen Male Spouse, which is obviously a military spouse website. I have a couple of personal essays that I'm working on getting published right now. And I do really enjoy fiction, though, and fiction is much harder for me. So I'm trying to stretch and get better at fiction. It's just a more difficult style for me. So, but I am working on it. And for NaNoWriMo, I worked on a young adult novel, a dystopian young adult novel.
Those are the best.
And it from the perspective of a male lead, and halfway through it turned into a male-female alternating main characters. And so I've had to be restructuring that book, but it's been a lot of fun. So I really just enjoy the process more than anything.
Yeah, definitely. I'm kind of doing the same with art right now, as I'm trying to get back into art.
Yeah.
And I just started an Instagram, which if you want to go and follow it, that'd be great. It's at the Ocean in the Woods.
I follow it. It's nice.
Thanks.
I like it.
I'm just trying to get into it again, where I'm just kind of just doing it for the love of it.
Yeah.
One day I'd like to maybe do something with it and fulfill a childhood dream of actually like being an artist who sells art.
Yeah.
But right
and then
now,
you can have a beret and a cup of coffee.
And then I
like
can have
me,
a beret.
right?
Yeah, exactly. We can sit around and have fancy berets and coffee.
That'd be great.
But for now, yeah, it's just for the fun of it, just to try to get back into it and really explore it, just for the love of it, just to experiment with techniques and see how it goes and just move along with it. And it's really fun. So if you want to go follow my Instagram, that would really help, because honestly, having people follow, I know that's kind of narcissistic, but having people follow me makes me more likely to actually do work.
Well, no, it holds you accountable. Yeah,
it holds me accountable.
Narcissistic.
And it doesn't make me feel like I'm just throwing crap at the world.
Right.
Like, people actually seem to like it a little bit, and if people seem to like it, then I'll do more.
Yeah.
It's
right.
One of those things.
Real fast, somebody asked about how to store old bullet journals. I store mine on my desk. I don't even know if you can see this, but like I have a whole row of books, like writing books back there. And on the very end there, I have there's my white journal there, and my writing journal is normally there. And so is my old journal and my current bullet journal, but that's where I store mine. I keep
mine on a bookshelf.
I just keep them on a shelf.
Yep. I just label them the way that, I don't have mine labeled right now, but you can see hers, she labeled it.
Yeah.
They come with little stickers with letters.
Yes.
And I just label it and stick it on my bookshelf. And I put like bullet journal 1, bullet journal 2, and I'll put the dates, the ranging months from this month to this month and this year.
Right. So you actually got around numbering yours, which I haven't.
I only have 2, so it's really not that.
Yeah.
It's not really. I don't know. Whenever I get bored or I feel like I should be doing something important, I do silly things like that aren't really that important. But I just keep mine on a bookshelf, and I don't really reference them that often, but it's nice to, just to have them there. Occasionally I'll go through and flip through my very first bullet journal, and I'll cringe at how everything is hideous. But it's a nice little look into my life back when I was a sophomore in college.
So let's see. Julie asked, do you post things you create on Instagram? I have a bunch of things I've created, but haven't shared them anywhere. I'm not sure if that question was for me or Shelby. I'm assuming it's for Shelby because she's the visual artist.
Yes, the answer is yes. I'm trying to.
And can you give the Instagram again?
Sure.
Just give them that.
I can actually type it in as well. It's at the Ocean and the Woods, which it has nothing to do with boxes or anything or coffee. Okay. So it's just kind of a different thing. But yeah, if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's not really populated right now. I'm trying to get more into it because like I said, I'm trying to do it more often.
Keeping up with 2 Instagrams.
Yeah, it took 3 actually.
3, okay.
Coffee Box Creations, the sticker one, which
that's right. That's right. You have your shop.
The shop's been closed since I've been traveling, so I haven't posted anything in a while. So it's kind of
goodness. Stay busy.
Yeah, so it's Yeah, been traveling. So yeah, which by the way, just as an open apology, sorry if I haven't answered anything because I've been still traveling. I live in Illinois and I'm in Oklahoma. I don't know where I am. I don't know what's happening.
Well, to make it up to everybody, why don't we show them the new journal and tell them about the giveaway?
Yes.
Okay.
Nothing will get in the way of the giveaway.
The really, really kind people over at JB Welley offered to host a giveaway. And the last time we had this webinar, we said, hey, there's a giveaway coming. Listen up for it. And Christmas got away from us and the new year, and we weren't able to get it off the ground as quickly as we wanted to. But this is that giveaway we were talking about. Yep. And you guys are getting first dibs. If you go to our pages right now, my post is probably going live as we speak. So open in a new tab and go to our web pages, and the giveaway should be live right now. But we are giving away the new colors of the Leuchtturm 1917 A5s. So JB Welley sent these to us to show to you guys, and they'll actually be shipping the prizes direct from their store. So you'll get ones that still have the wrapper on them. Like I've taken the wrapper off because I wanted to take photos and make them look beautiful, but you guys are gonna get some new ones. So this is the sand color, which is this really beautiful creamy beige. And then we have the Nordic Blue, which is
it's dreamy.
I think like I might leave my husband for this color. I love this color.
It's so nice.
It's so beautiful.
Well, you have the light blue, which is like
I have the light blue, and if you want to see them up like next to each other, this is the light blue.
And then there's a navy out there
like
somewhere,
this really beautiful,
it's a nice medium blue.
Yeah, this is like
nice.
A dusty blue. Like I imagine like putting this in my bicycle when I go out in the French countryside.
Yep, having a beautiful blue dress with this exact cardigan right here, this yellow cardigan.
Exactly, it's so beautiful. And then this beige too is like
beige is very nice,
super creamy. Mm-hmm. Like I just want to curl up in my Burberry raincoat.
I could tell
if I had a Burberry raincoat, if I were that stylish.
Like it looks kind of it looks fine in pictures, but it looks a lot better in person. Now that I'm seeing it in person, it's got like a slightly greenish tinge, ever so slightly.
Yeah.
Almost like a military camo.
Yeah, it's sort of like, it reminds me of like really old school military uniforms.
Yeah.
Because like now they're all this really dark navy that's all black now, but this reminds me of the really old school.
Yep.
Yeah.
But both of them together,
like cadet blue or something.
Yep. They're really cool.
Really beautiful. So those are the colors for you guys. So these are the same Leuchtturm 1917s that we know and love.
Dot grid.
They're the dot grid. And he may have them on jbwelley.com. He may have them in like the lines, or I'm not sure.
I know he doesn't have plain paper. I think he has grid and
he
lines.
has the sketchbooks that are in black.
Yes.
But
I didn't know that.
He has a sketchbook in black, but I'm not totally sure about if these come in just dots or just lines. But we can ask if you find that you really want one of these and you want it in lines. We can ask John about it. But these two right now that I hold in my hands are dots.
Yep.
So
they're so nice.
And they're very, very nice. So all you have to do is go to our website, stick your info in the widget. And remember, that only goes to our newsletters. We don't sell your info. We don't give it to anybody. We safeguard our email lists very closely because we like you guys and we don't want to lose you.
Definitely.
So you can enter it there. We haven't told anybody else about the giveaway, so you guys are getting first dibs. So right after this, the website that you can go to is either littlecoffeefox.com or pageflutter.com. And you can go to either one of those, and our post should be going live. I'm going to go look at mine right now.
Mine should be going live any minute right now. It's scheduled to go. But either of those websites, there should be a post all about the giveaway that explains the rules of the giveaway, and then there's a promo simple widget which should be very prominently displayed in the post, and you can enter your information there and do all the things you need to do to enter.
And I might force mine to go ahead and go live now for you guys so that you can see it.
Let me see if it's up on
just because
I was scheduling mine, so I have no idea what's going on over there right now.
Right.
But there's going to be two winners. So one person's going to get sand and one person's going to get Nordic Blue. It's just going to be random, isn't it? It's just going to be random unless you live in Canada, and then we have to actually add a little skills test for you guys, which is fine. We can do that. But mine should be live now. So if you guys go to pageflutter.com, you will see the giveaway. Yep. And mine, for whatever reason, decided not to go up, so I'm going to go ahead and post it.
Mine did the same thing. I don't know what's happening.
Yep.
Technology, man. Technology. This is why we're analog people.
Yeah, this is exactly it right here.
Okay. So yeah, if you guys just go there, that'll have all the details. It's going to have the dates that it's open. It's open for exactly 1 week from right now. So you guys can go and you can share this with other people that you think should get into bullet journaling or could just use a really nice notebook. And
oh yeah, because you definitely don't need to be a bullet journalist for this. This is wonderful notebook.
Yeah, these are great notebooks. You can use them for anything you want. You can use them for note taking in class. And then just as a reminder, anytime you go to jbwelly.com and stick in the code page flutter, you get 10% off. That was supposed to expire at the end of 2016, and JB Welly was so happy with all of you guys that used the coupon that they decided to extend it indefinitely. So thank you guys very much for that, because that was all you. He said, wow, so many people loved this coupon. We're just going to keep it going. So it was really exciting.
And then Florentina, I'm sorry, but this is just going to be for America and Canada.
This kills us every time to say that.
Really
it's so disappointing.
I promise it's not because we don't like non-Americans and Canadians. It's because there's different laws for giveaways in every country, and we just have to be careful.
We love you guys. We do.
We're really sorry. It's the laws.
We go through this every month where we're like, is there any way for us to open this up? And unfortunately, it just becomes very difficult for us, and it puts us at liability to actually either be fined or have our websites shut down for running illegal lotteries. A lot of people unfortunately, a lot of bloggers do it. They actually do it wrong.
They do the risk.
I don't want to say that.
The risk, and they just hope for the best. And
I don't want to say that, but I think people get accustomed to having things open internationally because a lot of people are
the internet.
They're rolling the dice, and they're okay with taking that risk. I think our blogs and our audiences are very important to us, and so we really try to do things legally. And so that's partly why we can't open outside of the U.S. and Canada. It's just because we have been able to ensure that we are actually conforming to those laws. So you can, AC Taylor asked, can you enter on both sites? You can, but it's not going to let you have more than the allotted entries. You only need to enter once.
You enter once on one of our sites, and it will enter you. It'll sign you up for both of our newsletters. And if you want to do extra entries, you can do.
There are a bunch of extras.
Twitter,
you can get 9 extra entries on there. You get one for
Pinterest.
For following us on Pinterest, for pinning a pin, for following on Instagram. There's all these extras. So you can go in, and there are ways that you can maximize how many entries you get. So it's not just one entry. You'll get a lot. So, but yeah. Oh gosh, I'm so sad, Florentina. I'm so sad
really
because you guys, trust me, if this were in our hands, we would open this to everybody in the world.
Absolutely. International. I did a couple of giveaways back in my earlier days, and they were international, and it was great. Except for the shipping wasn't always great, but that was something it just comes with. But looking back on it now, I'm like, wow, that was a risk.
Right.
That was young, wild, and free.
Yeah. Now we know. Now we know the Twitter extra entry for. Oh man. Okay, I'll go in and fix that today. So Kristen, thank you for letting us know that there's an error on my Twitter extra entry. I'll fix that today. Thank you very much.
And then I think it's about time to go ahead and wrap up. So if anyone has any additional questions that didn't get answered, or you want to repeat them, or anything pop up, feel free to ask us. We can hold on for a second and catch any stragglers, and then.
This was fun. I like doing this in person.
This is really cool.
It's really nice.
Sometime you should come up to Illinois.
I will have to.
Get into our little dinky apartment and make a thing out of that.
I'll go to Chicago, go to the Shed Aquarium, and do some fun things.
Yeah, I haven't actually done all that. I've been to the Museum for Industry and Science, MSI, not MIS. The Instagram entry is not working for me. I guess we need to tinker with that.
Okay, I'll tell you what, you guys. We are going, as soon as we hang up, we're going to get in there and make sure that there aren't any glitches in the entries, so that you can get everything entered correctly. I'm sorry. That's on me. That's not even on Shelby.
Totally
I take all of the credit for that one. So we'll make sure that those get fixed for you, so that you can get all of the max entries that you're supposed to get. Okay. Awesome.
So I don't think anyone really has any extra questions. Just thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you guys very much. If you have any questions that didn't get answered here, feel free to go to either of our blogs, littlecoffeefox.com or pageflutter.com, and go to the contact info, just, the contact us, and you can send us an email, and we'll be able to actually answer your question individually.
Absolutely.
Too. So that's it. We're our beta. She says we're your beta testers.
Yep.
That's great. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for coming.
This has been fantastic. Thanks for coming again to our, was this our fourth webinar now?
I think it's our fourth, yeah.
Fourth? Okay, this is our fourth and our first one together, and this has been really, really fun. So
thank you guys very much. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a wonderful 2017 until next month, and we'll see you in a month.
Awesome. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.